All right, today we're going to dive into a pretty radical, maybe even an uncomfortable idea about leadership. And it's this: what a ruler is, well, that matters a whole lot less than what they seem to be.
And this quote right here, this is pretty much the foundation for everything we're talking about today. It's saying that for people in power, perception isn't just, a part of the reality, it is the only reality that actually matters.
So that leads us straight into this central paradox of leadership, right? It's this constant, really difficult balancing act between looking like the good guy and, when you have to, doing things that, well, aren't so good.
And this slide just lays that tension out perfectly, doesn't it? You've got two sides to a ruler. On one hand, you have the public face. This is the part that has to look merciful, honest, humane. But then, there's the private mind. And that's where things get strategic, cold, and focused on whatever is necessary.
Okay, so let's dig into that public face first. We're going to call it the mask of virtue. So why is this mask so critical? Why is it so essential when you're performing the act of power?
So what are we even talking about when we say mask? What does it actually look like? Well, according to this philosophy, it's all about projecting these specific qualities. A ruler has to look merciful. They have to seem honest, full of integrity, and humane. Because, these are the exact virtues that get people to trust you and stay loyal. But here's the kicker. Why are these virtues so important? According to this way of thinking, it's not about actually being a good person. No, these are strategic tools. The whole point of putting on this virtuous show is to keep things stable, maintain order, and make sure people do what they're told. But of course, this mask, this whole carefully built performance of being good, well, that's not the whole story, is it? It has a much deeper, much more calculated purpose. And that purpose is to hide the mind that's working underneath it all. It's basically a shield, right? A shield for the cold, hard, strategic thinking you need to do to hold on to power and keep the state safe. And that brings us to the other side of this coin. Let's talk about the cold calculus. This is the reality of what this philosophy just calls necessity.
And this is where we get to the really uncomfortable question at the core of all this. When does a ruler have to act against the very virtues they're supposed to represent? When do they have to go against humanity, all for the so-called good of the state? The scary part is, this philosophy argues that moments like that, they're not just possible, they're inevitable.
So for those inevitable, tough moments, this philosophy lays out a chillingly logical process. Step 1. Assess the threat. Figure out what's putting stability at risk. Step 2. Calculate what you need to do, even if it's ruthless. Step 3. Act. Do it decisively. No hesitation. And here's the most important part, step 4. All the while, you have to maintain that public mask of virtue. The dirty work happens in the shadows, but the performance, that has to go on.
So all of this is building to one central idea, the performance of power. This is where the mask and the mind finally come together. And it reveals leadership not as some kind of moral duty, but, well, more like a performance on a grand stage. And here's the definition, the absolute key takeaway. The performance of power is this belief that ruling effectively, it has almost nothing to do with who you really are. It's all about how convincingly you can act like a virtuous leader for everyone watching.
And that leads us to a pretty stark and kinda unavoidable conclusion, doesn't it? If leadership really is just a stage, then the best ruler isn't the most moral one, or the most just. Nope. The best ruler is simply the best actor, the one who can wear that mask perfectly while making those incredibly hard decisions behind closed doors. So, we're left with this one last, huge question. What do you think? Is this whole philosophy a practical guide for keeping things stable in a messy world? A necessary tool for being a leader? Or is it something way darker? A kind of timeless excuse for tyranny, one that lets a ruler do anything they want, as long as they can hide it behind a virtuous smile? That's something you'll have to decide for yourself.